The harder you grip the steering wheel of your life, the faster you lose control. We have all experienced those moments where the knuckles turn white, the breath grows shallow, and the mind races at 1,000 miles per hour, trying to navigate a storm that seems determined to push us off the road. We believe that if we just think harder, work longer, or worry more intensely, we can somehow force the universe to align with our specific plans. But what if your can-do attitude is actually the very thing blocking your breakthrough? What if the strength you pride yourself on is the primary barrier preventing the peace you desperately crave? We live in a culture that deifies self-reliance, teaching us from a young age that we are the masters of our fate and the captains of our souls. This philosophy works well enough when the seas are calm and the wind is at our backs, but it falls apart the moment we hit a crisis that logic cannot solve. This is what we might call the bankruptcy of logic. In a world governed by finite resources, our human reasoning is a faulty currency that fails to buy us a single moment of genuine rest. When we rely solely on our intellect, we are attempting to solve supernatural problems with strictly natural tools.
Think of self-reliance as trying to power a massive 60-story skyscraper with a single AA battery. The battery itself isn't evil. In fact, it is a perfectly good tool for a small remote control or a simple flashlight. However, it was never designed to carry the electrical load of an entire building's heating, cooling, and lighting systems. When we try to sustain our complex lives, our hurting families, and our uncertain futures on the battery of our own limited willpower, we inevitably find ourselves sitting in the dark, exhausted and confused. God is the entire power grid, an endless source of energy, yet we remain in the darkness because we are too busy checking our own empty battery.
Your human understanding is like a paper map in the middle of a torrential rainstorm. It gets soaked, the ink begins to run, and it becomes physically impossible to read when the wind starts howling around you. Even at its best, a map only shows you what was true at the moment it was printed. It cannot account for the fallen trees or the flooded roads ahead. God's wisdom, however, is a real-time satellite navigation system that sees the obstacles you haven't even reached yet. He sees the traffic jams 10 miles ahead and the shortcut that you would never have found on your own. Why do we trust our soggy paper over His high-definition vision?
There is one subtle prayer habit that actually signals a lack of trust rather than an abundance of faith, and most people are doing it right now without even realizing the damage it causes. We often come to the Creator with a list of how-tos rather than a heart focused on who He is. We spend our entire prayer time telling God exactly how He should fix the problem, which is really just an attempt to manage His sovereignty from our limited perspective. True prayer isn't about giving God a set of instructions. It is about receiving His divine peace. When we stop giving God a deadline, the atmosphere of our life finally begins to shift. If you think God is waiting for you to get it together before He acts, you are missing the most fundamental part of His nature. He does not require your perfection to begin His provision. He only requires your surrender. The Bible is filled with stories of people who are at the end of their rope, completely out of options and ideas before the miraculous occurred. The Red Sea didn't part while the Israelites were still debating their logistical options in Egypt. It parted when they were trapped between an army and an ocean. It was their helplessness, not their helpfulness, that invited the hand of God to move. Modern science is finally beginning to validate these ancient spiritual principles through the lens of psychology. Research by Dr. Kenneth Pargament, a leading figure in the psychology of religion, has shown that individuals who utilize positive religious coping, the act of viewing God as a partner and trusting in His ultimate plan, experience significantly lower levels of depression and anxiety. This is because trusting in a higher power serves as a mental buffer against situations that are objectively out of our control. When we believe that a benevolent and all-powerful force is overseeing our circumstances, our nervous system can finally exit the fight or flight mode.
Furthermore, a landmark study from Baylor University, published in the journal Sociology of Religion, found that individuals with a secure attachment to God report a profound reduction in anxiety. Physically and neurologically, handing over the burden to God through prayer helps to lower our cognitive load. This means that by surrendering your worries, you are literally freeing up brain space that was previously being wasted on repetitive, unproductive thoughts. It turns out that the biblical command to cast your cares upon Him isn't just good theology, it is a highly effective strategy for maintaining long-term neurological health and emotional stability.
Human support, while often well-meaning, is notoriously fickle and limited by human capacity. People love you when you are succeeding, but they often disappear or become overwhelmed when you are truly suffering. Even the best-intentioned friends eventually run out of advice or energy to help you carry your load. God, however, is the only constant in a world defined by variables. He does not have off days where His mercy is less available or His patience is thin. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever, offering a level of consistency that no human relationship can ever hope to provide. We are about to reveal the secret of the second wind, a phenomenon where Christ-like service provides energy precisely when you should be completely burned out. In the middle of a crisis, your natural instinct is to withdraw, isolate, and protect your remaining resources. However, the kingdom of God operates on a paradoxical principle. By giving your life away in love and service to others, you actually find the strength to keep living it more abundantly. When you shift your focus from your own pain to the needs of those around you, a supernatural stamina enters your spirit that defies human explanation. The research of Wong MacDonald and Gorsuch regarding religious surrender supports this idea, showing that surrendering to God correlates with higher self-esteem and a healthier locus of control. Contrary to the idea that surrender is a form of passivity, it is actually an active, high-level strategy for resilience. It allows an individual to release the weight of the how and the when to God, which provides the emotional endurance needed to persevere through long-term trials. You are not giving up, you are simply handing the heavy lifting over to the only one who is strong enough to carry it without stumbling. The contrast between God's unchanging nature and the volatility of our circumstances is the foundation of true peace. If your peace is based on your bank account, your health, or your reputation, it will be as unstable as those things are. But if your peace is anchored in the character of God, it remains steady even when the world around you is shaking. This is the difference between a house built on sand and a house built on a rock. The storm hits both houses with equal intensity, but only one has a foundation that extends deep into the unshakable reality of divine love. When you feel the urge to reclaim control, remember the satellite navigation analogy. You may only see the fog directly in front of your windshield, but God sees the clear sky just a mile down the road. Every time you choose to pray instead of panic, you are making a conscious decision to value His perspective over your own limited sight. This doesn't mean the problem disappears instantly, but it means that you are no longer facing the problem alone. You are backed by the resources of heaven, and that changes everything about how you walk through the fire. Seeking God's counsel before taking action is not a sign of indecisiveness. It is the ultimate mark of wisdom. We often rush into fixing things only to create 3 new problems for every one we solve. By pausing to ask for divine direction, we align ourselves with a wisdom that spans eternity. This practice of waiting on the Lord is what allows us to renew our strength and mount up with wings like eagles. It is in the stillness of surrender that we find the strategy for the battle, a strategy that often involves less striving and more trusting. The Christ-like attitude is centered on love, which is the most powerful force in existence. When we approach our difficulties with a heart of love, love for God and love for our neighbors, we are tapping into a frequency that fear cannot inhabit. Fear and love cannot occupy the same space simultaneously. By choosing to cultivate a spirit of gratitude and service, even in the midst of a personal desert, you are effectively starving your anxiety of the oxygen it needs to survive. You become a conduit for grace, and in the process, you are refreshed by the very water you pour out. There is a biblical assurance that God will answer those who call on Him in faith. This answer may not always be the yes we expected or the now we demanded, but it is always the best that His love provides. Sometimes His answer is to remove the obstacle, and other times His answer is to provide the grace to walk through it. Either way, the promise remains. He will never leave you nor forsake you. The bankruptcy of your own logic is actually an invitation to participate in the infinite riches of His wisdom and power. As we look toward the conclusion of this journey, consider the areas of your life where you are still white-knuckling the steering wheel. What would happen if you truly let go and allowed the master pilot to take the controls? The relief you feel in that moment of surrender is not a delusion. It is the feeling of a heavy, unnatural burden being lifted from shoulders that were never meant to carry it. You were created for connection and dependence on the Creator, not for the crushing weight of total self-reliance. The secret to the second wind is found in the realization that your energy is not a closed system. When you are connected to God, you have access to a reservoir of strength that does not run dry. This is why the saints of old could endure such immense pressure with such inexplicable joy. They weren't better than us, they simply knew where their power came from. They understood that their AA battery was useless for the skyscraper, so they stopped trying to charge it and simply plugged into the source of all light. If you are currently in a season of waiting, do not mistake God's silence for His absence. He is often doing His most profound work in the quiet, weaving together a tapestry of circumstances that you cannot yet see. Your job is not to figure out the entire pattern. Your job is simply to hold on to the thread of faith that He has placed in your hand. Trusting God when things make sense is easy, but trusting Him when everything seems to be falling apart is where true spiritual maturity is forged and where the greatest breakthroughs are born. In summary, the transition from problem-solving to presence-seeking is the most important shift you will ever make. It is the move from the frustration of the paper map to the clarity of the divine GPS. It is the decision to stop trying to power your life with a battery and instead connect to the grid of God's unchanging love. This is the path to the peace that surpasses all understanding, a peace that doesn't make sense to the world, but makes perfect sense to the soul that has finally found its home in the arms of the Father. As you step forward from this moment, do so with the confidence that you are not the one who has to hold everything together. The one who sustains the universe with the word of His power is more than capable of sustaining you. Release the grip on your steering wheel. Let go of the need to understand every turn before it happens. Trust in the unchanging character of the one who called you, and you will find that even in the storm, there is a quiet, steady hand
guiding you safely toward the shore.
The second wind is waiting for you, but it only comes when you stop running on your own strength. It comes when you look up and realize that the God who created the stars knows your name and cares about the smallest detail of your day. This is the ultimate security, knowing that you are loved by an infinite God who has promised to work all things together for your good. Stop worrying about the bankruptcy of your logic and start resting in the abundance of His grace. Your breakthrough is not found in your effort, but in your surrender.
May you find the courage today to trade your heavy burdens for His light yoke. May you replace your soggy paper maps with the real-time guidance of His Spirit. And may you experience the profound joy that comes from knowing that while you may not know what the future holds, you know exactly who holds the future. This is the secret to a life of resilience, a life of purpose, and a life of deep, abiding peace that no circumstance can ever take away from you. The steering wheel is His. You can finally rest. The journey of faith is not about reaching a destination where there are no more problems. It is about reaching a state of heart where the problems no longer have power over you. By prioritizing prayer, seeking His counsel, and maintaining a Christ-like attitude of service, you are building a life that is truly unshakable. You are no longer a victim of your circumstances, but a victor through Him who loved you. Take a deep breath, release the tension in your hands, and trust that the Master of the wind and the waves is exactly where He has always been, right there with you in the boat. Everything you need for the next step is already provided in His presence. You don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step in faith. Just look at Him, listen for His voice, and move forward with the quiet confidence that the God of all comfort is leading you. The bankruptcy of your logic is the beginning of His miracle. The end of your strength is the start of His power. Welcome to the life of surrender, where the struggle ends and the true adventure of walking with God finally begins.